Welcome into the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. It is December 19th, and Arkansas and Eric Musselman are 7-4, but it doesn't feel that way. Me and Ethan went down to North Little Rock over the weekend. Ethan covered Arkansas's women's game. Arkansas's women won. They beat Samford, excuse me. I've got Stanford on the brain. I think I'm mentally still in the Bahamas. It's almost been a month, but I feel like I'm still there. Arkansas's men closed the doubleheader in North Little Rock at Simmons Bank Arena. It was a win. I don't know how much more you can say than that. I mean, unless you just want to get into the nitty gritty of what exactly happened. At the end of the day, a win is a win. Arkansas is 7-4 on the men's side, but I think this is going to be my weekly time when I'm like, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and I think it's true probably for both teams at the moment, because Arkansas's women won comfortably, but maybe not impressively, and then Arkansas's men looked like they were really taking care of business. I was really close to having my game story ready with about 12 minutes left, 11 or 12 minutes left, and then the whole thing, I just had to scrap it and pretty much start all over. It was kind of a typical Arkansas game down in Central Arkansas. Like if you go back to all the times that Arkansas has played in North Little Rock, especially, we'll just go with Eric Musselman's tenure. I mean, you've got the Valpo game that you needed an Adrio Bailey block toward the end. You lose to Hofstra and Bebe and Aaron Estrada, who's now at Alabama. Last year against Bradley was as comfortable gets in terms of wins in Central Arkansas. And then Arkansas got up by 20 a couple of times midway through the second half, and then Arkansas needed Owen McCormack of Lipscomb to miss a pretty good look from three to avoid going to overtime and potentially dropping its second game in Central Arkansas in 3 years. So what do we make of this team at this point? I mean, they're 7-4 overall. You got another game against Abilene Christian coming up on Thursday. Arkansas is going to be back at home for the first time in what feels like forever. I guess since the Furman game, right? What do you make of this team right now? Joe Lunardi doesn't have it in the field of 64 or 68 for the second update in a row that I've seen, maybe more than that. What do you got, man? Because I'm kind of stumped, and I'm kind of with Eric Musselman. I asked him the other day to close his post-game press conference. I was like, does this situation that you're in right now feel at all similar to maybe some of the past teams that have had to turn things around? And he said it's completely different. This team doesn't have traits of past teams.
Yeah. Not only do they, you're talking about bracketology, what ESPN does, not only are they not in the field of 68, they don't even have them on the bubble right now. So there's always the first four out and the next four out. So that gives you 8 more teams. That means, I guess they're saying they have Arkansas below 70. Well, I mean 70 that would make the tournament. You got to think about there's a lot of automatic qualifiers in that 68 number. But I mean, they're not even scratching the bubble according to ESPN. I do think they'll be I think we said this last week. I expect them to be a tournament team by the end of the year. I just don't think that there's like I said last week. I just red flags flying everywhere. I don't think this is a team like the past couple ones that can make a Sweet 16 push at all. But I do expect them by the end of the year to figure out enough to probably be a tournament team. But I mean, right now, has there ever been an Eric Musselman team that this close to conference play you're not seeing them even on the bubble?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I go back to a couple of years ago when Arkansas lost to Oklahoma and then they lost to Hofstra. I mean, I think but that team was like preseason number 10 in the country. So they had it, and that Oklahoma game that they lost was their first loss of the year.
Yeah.
So I think they had built up some goodwill, and so a couple of losses. I think it may have knocked them out of the poll. Definitely knocked them out after the Hofstra loss. Last year was, it was a headache throughout the entire season for Eric, just trying to figure out availability with guys, and then I feel like they kind of knew who they were, but it was still a struggle, even though they knew who they were and what they wanted to do. It was just like a matter of like, can they do it
Yeah.
on a given night?
I just feel like the difference right now with this year from how it's felt in years past, and everybody keeps on trying to bring up like, oh, Eric's always been able to like under him, always been able to figure it out. And like he even alluded at it during his press conference after the game of just like, y'all can't just keep on saying that. Like each
Yeah.
team is different. But like, I think the main difference is this year you're walking into SEC play like, in years past, they've fallen behind like early in SEC play, and that's where like the grace period was like of let them figure it out. Right now, it's like you need to go into conference play and you need to start winning some games. Like they don't have like I guess that buffer that they've had in years past of like the ability to not like they need to finish probably top half of the conference for sure, top half maybe push toward the top because right now the resume just doesn't do it. I mean, it's crazy. I would have told you were a liar if before the season I said we'd sit here after 11 games and say, hey, they've beaten Duke, but their resume it just isn't pulling it right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's just been that type of weird year. It's like, I mean, I don't know. It's just this team has shown so many bright spots, but like still searching for a 40-minute game, still searching for like a not only just a 40-minute game, searching for like back to back like good. And I'm not maybe not back to back 40-minute games, but back to back just strong showings. Like when was the last time that the team put together consecutive, just impressive? I mean, I say
Yeah, it may be like the first couple of games of the season, like actual like regular season.
you probably need
games.
to pick
Yeah,
Purdue exhibition rolling into Alcorn State. That's the last
maybe
time I
so.
saw the team that I was like, oh, this is a great team.
Yeah. I'm Scottie Borderline, by the way. I'm really bad at introducing people, including myself. Happy to have Ethan Westerman here. Blake Sutton is producing, and we've got Snoop on a stoop here. He's trying to up the vibes, I think, with everything going on, and he's just chilling. So good to have him along too.
He's the one trying to remind us all just to stay chill.
Yeah, it's hard to be sad with Snoop around. He spreads joy and merriment this time of year.
For sure.
I have to point out on his little like, I don't know what you call it, hanging from his like there's just an
It's just a little
SD.
sunglasses medallion, yeah.
His sunglass medallion is just like a chain SD. I don't know. It's like the normal Santa just wears SC, but I like that touch. He's definitely bringing good vibes here on this day where we probably all just need to take one out of this book and just kind of, just be a little more chill about how things are going. Maybe not overreact too much.
Obviously I can't touch him. I don't know how he got here, but you can't touch him. But I was told that you can take his sunglasses off, and he's also. I'm looking at the back of his little shirt, and it's just Velcro. You can take the shirt. You can take the shirt off too, and he's just in his Snoop Claus outfit. So hopefully he brings some good vibes and like Blake said, some cheer and some merriment because I'm not really finding much at the moment, and that kind of leads me to a point. Me and Bob and Curtis Wilkerson at 24/7, we drove down to North Little Rock on Saturday, and we're walking out of Simmons Bank back to my car, and I legitimately had like a moment where my heart like fell into my stomach because I wrote a kind of an analysis of the game the other night, and I wasn't sure if I wrote that Arkansas won the game or lost the game. And like it was kind of my headline. I went back and looked. It was analyzing Arkansas's 69-66 win over Lipscomb, but I wasn't sure like in the actual body of the story if I said if they won the game or not. But I did write like I don't know that there's under Eric been a game where a win felt like more of a loss. And like maybe the only other game that I can point to was in conference play maybe last season when Arkansas went to South Carolina and they barely won. And I think they may have trailed in that game in the last minute and needed some pretty opportune stuff to happen. It did happen. Can y'all think of another one? I mean, is there a game that's escaping me? I kind of went through a list I pulled up Ken Palm and kind of went through the schedule the other day, but I really can't think of one. that made me feel a certain way about this team, maybe in a not so positive way, even though they did win.
That one really comes to mind because South Carolina was the worst team in the SEC last year, and I think Arkansas ended up winning that game by like 1 or 2 points. It was super close at the end, and Arkansas needed to make some free throws down the stretch to even win that game. But wasn't it like a week later they beat Kentucky at Rupp?
It was the next game.
Yeah, the very next game. So yeah, that was strange. But
like Eric says, every game is different, takes on its own identity. I think what we're I led off my sidebar the other night with kind of what you mentioned a minute ago of Eric's not holding on to the mindset as of right now that this team is going to get it figured out just because other teams have. And when Eric has not said that to this point. Like he's obviously said every team's got its own identity and personality. But I think his past teams at this point, they kind of had a personality and an identity. They just maybe weren't following through on a lot of things. Like, in your opinion, like what is the team's personality at this point, or what is its identity other than we don't really know if this team is I don't think they're connected. And I wrote on the board the other day, somebody started a thread. It was called State of the Team, and they're just like, somebody tell me what I'm seeing or what you're seeing. And I'm like, I'm not around the team all the time, and so I don't know what the problem is, but I've been present for every game. I've been at every game, and I really think that there's an energy and a personality issue with this group. I think Jeremiah Davenport's the energy guy, and he's the guy that's maybe bringing some life on the bench. And when he's gotten into the game and he's played pretty well, I think that energizes the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where like the leadership is coming from. Like I think you've got guys, obviously, and y'all probably agree with this because we've identified them several times in the past, like guys who can lead, but like where is it? Where is it? And like, does the team have an alpha? All of those things. What is this group's identity right now, and like, is that the biggest issue?
I'd say right now that's kind of what I've been pinpointing as maybe the number one issue is just like you don't know you just don't have a feel for this. Since when do we look 11 games into a season and be like, what is the feel of this team? Like there's just not an identity yet. I think that can develop over conference. But I really do think that by the end of the year, like this won't be. I don't expect this to be a problem for the whole year. It's just I think that maybe this is a year where you just have so many new faces, which he always does, and it seems like they figured out, I guess, a little bit of an identity by this point. But it's just I don't know. It seems like nobody. It's all these older guys who just can't figure it out with each other. It's like maybe they've been around the same teammates for so much of their careers that now it's like shocking some of them, like trying to figure out new people and what their role is. Right now, I'd say their identity is not really. It's not clear. It's hard to give one. It's like, in their wins, I can give you some in their wins. And their wins, they're the team that can, like, that can knock down threes in important times, that can defend and take the best player out of the game, at least limit them. They can defend a lot better than they do in some of these other games. That's what I'm saying. That's why there's not an identity, though, is I'm saying that's only in the games that like the lights are on the brightest for some reason. Like the Duke game, or it's so weird. We honestly need to just start like talking about Purdue, but I'm gonna still talk about it because let's not act like that wasn't like a big stage for them. It's like in these games they've got an identity, and then the moment that it's like an opponent that you're like a Lipscomb or Stanford, even in the Bahamas, it's like the moment that it's somebody that you're kind of like maybe have a tendency to just kind of like, I don't want to say overlook, but it's not the same as playing Duke or something. Like the moment that happens, it's like, what is the identity? And I'm not seeing anything that I saw in those other games. But
yeah, Blake, do you have any thoughts on
scramble, man?
I mean, you were at the Oklahoma game. Again, shout out to your dad for the really good seats. I've had the thought for a long time now, and I finally wrote it down in that message board post or response that I mentioned a minute ago. I'm somewhere between when I watch this team in pregame warmups, like either they're really locked in and really focused, or it's a group of guys that don't particularly like to be around each other. And I'm not saying that there's internal stuff going on, but I just see a lot of kind of going through the motions, and I didn't figure 11 games into the year with this older, more mature group that I would see that.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on it last week just about the inability to overcome adversity. And you mentioned the Oklahoma game. Yeah, up to the with the first 12 minutes of the game, it was a really tight game, and then it was like as soon as Oklahoma started to go on a run, it was over. And the other night when Arkansas got up, 19, 20 points with like 9 minutes left in the game, I started thinking like, oh, this game's getting kind of boring. I was getting ready for a Christmas party, and I thought, I'm just going to go get ready. I'm not going to watch this anymore. And
surprise.
And then Lipscomb goes on a crazy run, 19-2 run or something crazy like that. But it was kind of the same issue. It was like as soon as their shots stop falling and as soon as they give up a few buckets, they just kind of break down. And you mentioned leadership earlier. There still isn't that person that's going to kind of rally the team and say, all right, we gotta tighten things up. We got to get better looks. We got to defend better. I remember a couple times, it was two different players in the second half. Brazil did it once and Devo did it once. They're off ball, and the ball handler goes around the guy they're defending, and literally Brazil and Devo both did this. They're flat-footed, and they're just watching the ball handler just go right by them, and they're not making any effort to get in front of him. They're not making any effort to swat the ball away. They're literally just standing there watching him go by, just uncontested to the basket. And yeah, to me, that's an effort thing, and it's just a lack of buy-in thing right now. So we'll see if that changes. But Ethan, you also mentioned about like these guys seemingly need a big stage to perform at the highest level. Maybe that starts with conference play, and you've got Auburn coming up by Walton. That should be a good atmosphere, but who knows? The other thing I'm a little worried about is you said Arkansas is 7-4 right now. They've got Abilene Christian and UNC Wilmington left in non-conference. UNC Wilmington already beat Kentucky this year at Rupp. That's not a guaranteed W. Let's say Arkansas wins both those games. They're sitting at 9-4 going into conference play. You got 18 conference games. I think it'd be pretty generous to predict that Arkansas would go 500, go 9-9. So that puts you at 18 and 13.
Yeah.
Going into the SEC tournament. I think right now Lunardi and those other guys are right to not have Arkansas on the field. 18 and 13 with loss to UNC Greensboro.
And that's
not going to cut it.
That's being generous. Of what are those if you go 500 in conference?
Yeah.
Do you have any signature wins, or are you saying, oh, we went 500?
You're just beating up on the teams that you should.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now. There's no margin for error the rest of non-conference. Like, you cannot lose. You cannot slip up to Abilene or UNC Wilmington, because if you do that, I genuinely think you have to go into conference play and win yourself. Shoot.
Go ahead and scale your concern or your worry with this team 1 to 10.
I'm going to go a solid 8.5.
I think I'm in the same place.
For the worry factor about not making the tournament? Yeah.
Or just like this group just won't figure it out.
That's a possibility. I see a lot of fans saying like, oh, this has happened before and they'll figure it out. They might not. And Arkansas might just not have a good year in basketball. I mean, it happens. Arkansas's had a ton of success the past few years, back-to-back Elite Eights, Sweet 16. We all know that. That doesn't necessarily mean that this particular team is going to figure it out and make it to the tournament and make a run. Sometimes that just doesn't happen, and that could be the case this year. Arkansas might just miss out and chalk it up as a bad season.
And here's my thing too. But really, like talking about it just being a bad year, like I completely agree. Like that just happens. But what worries me about that is last year it was like, honestly, they were lucky to make a Sweet 16 run. Like, let's just say it. Like, with that team they had last year, that took a lot of, like, there's no luck to, I guess, having it, like, finishing in the top 16. But how they got there I don't think they could have done it again just with the team they had. It was like kind of took a nice just miracle run at the end, beating Kansas and everything. What worries me is that like last year with that team, you're saying, oh, might need to go back to just like transfer heavy. Like it was just a bunch of freshmen who are clearly talented, but like it's not gelling. Like you need these older guys on the big scene, like to have the type of year that you want to like ultimately have. Then this year, go the route of going and getting these really talented transfers that are older guys, and then you're having this. You're like, what worries me is like, what do you do if this year doesn't pan out? If they don't figure things out, they don't make like, what do you do moving forward? Like, what is like the strategy as far as like team composition / do you
what do you look for the next time you're trying to build a roster?
are
Is
you
that what you're saying?
yeah are you trying to do things the same way you did maybe that second year under Musselman, where there were like a couple old guys, but then there were a lot of returners? I don't know. It's just you wonder if this year doesn't pan out, like what that does to kind of the blueprint that has worked.
I think we're going to take a break. I think we need one. And then on the other side of the break, we're going to do an airing of grievances. I think I've got a few things written down that I feel like I need to get off my chest. And then this is the last pod we're going to do before Christmas. And so I think each of us have got a couple things for this basketball team, kind of like the family member who doesn't say that they want anything. So you just kind of have to go get it and hope that they like it or enjoy it. We're going to do that on the other side of the break. Stick with us.
Stay on top of all Arkansas Razorback sports with a Digital Plus subscription on the Hogs Illustrated app. Get complete Razorbacks coverage in one location. Your subscription gives you 20-plus issues of Hogs Illustrated magazine, the most unique and compelling coverage anywhere in the state, plus total access to all the content on WholeHogSports.com, including breaking news, commentaries, analysis, features, recruiting, award-winning photos, and premium message boards. Subscriptions start at just $17 per month. Join the Hog Sports Network team at subscribe.waco.com. That's subscribe.wehco.com. Or call 479-684-5509 to get your front row seat to Arkansas Razorback sports. Go Hogs!
Welcome back into the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. Blake, y'all want to get some stuff off your chest? We'll do a little airing of grievances, things that are just kind of bugging you about this team. And like, look, I don't want this to be like a huge Debbie Downer type podcast, but I do think that like there are some things that are probably bugging us about this team, obviously, because it's not a well-oiled machine, far from it at this point. But I think everybody kind of sees things, maybe like we all see kind of the similar, like what's going on with this team, but maybe our aggravations or frustrations are a little bit different. I'll cede the floor to you since you're ready to go.
I have my one. This is like the one thing that I'm just like, just stop. If you're going to be worst in the league, like fouling, if you're going to foul 20.5 times a game, knock out these technical fouls that all feel arrogant to me. Like the Devo one the other night was a little different. It looked like he was kind of trying to defend this guy, but so many of these it's like this team plays with somewhat of an arrogance right now with some of these technicals that they get, or like just kind of body language. It's like if you're going to be sitting at 7-4 and you're already going to foul a lot, please knock off the technicals. Like, if
you didn't like that tech from Devo the other day?
I wasn't a fan.
He was taking up for Kai.
Well, I mean, it hurt the Razorbacks long term, I believe. Like as far as both teams. Wait, did both teams get free throws off that? I don't remember.
I don't remember either off the top of my head, but I think I was. So Owen McCormack and Mekhi Mitchell kind of got tangled up in the lane. McCormack ended up like grabbing or holding Kai's foot and making him fall. Kai gets up, steps to him, like of course he would.
Yeah.
And then officials separate those two, and then Devo gives him that's just, I feel like that's him taking up for his guy.
I told you that one's a little bit different. Like I feel like in the grand.
No, the ones in the Bahamas, 100%.
Yeah, I think that it's just and then the technicals in Tulsa. I didn't even we were there, so it's hard to see exactly what's going on. All I know is that there's way too many technicals for a game, and it was on both sides. Oh, you got some too. All I'm trying to say is if you're going to foul as much as you do, let's try and knock off some of these technicals of acting for some reason you have the room to spare for them. Because right now clearly you don't. You can't not foul in the first place. So there's me airing out my grievance about fouling and about technicals. I don't know how you would track who has the most technicals in the nation right now, but I just have a hunch that Arkansas would be right there at the top.
I mean, 2 of the 3 that Arkansas got against Oklahoma were Eric's, and then it was a double tech with Chandler Lawson. I'm not trying to push back on what you're saying at all, because I think the ones in the Bahamas, you got to get rid of those, like especially the one where you're TB and you're just like toe kicking. It was like,
Yeah, mine was, I'm trying to kind of put in a nutshell that the technicals, yes, they bug me, and I'm mainly pointing at the Bahamas ones,
Yeah.
and the ones that are like they're just kind of arrogant. But it's like even like just there's like right now for some reason it feels to me like some sort of almost like arrogance about like just like I don't know, it's just not like playing or acting away in a situation like we're talking a meltdown late in the game, like you're somehow some team that you aren't right now that has the room to do that. It's just I'm not like in the like I threw the technicals in there because it's like a very blatant thing I can point at because you shouldn't have this many technical fouls at this point of the season. I don't know how many it is, but it's just like that's like I mean in a nutshell trying to say like just this team like has some sort of like characteristic about it right now where they act like they have like room to be and act a certain way that they don't. So there we go.
Blake, what's at the top of your list, buddy?
Mine's kind of in the same vein. I want to see them exude a little more effort against the quote unquote bad teams or teams they should beat. They haven't really learned from that, obviously. You know, they did it against UNC Greensboro. They turned right around and did it against Stanford, almost dropped that one. And I think they did it against Lipscomb the other night. It was as soon as they got that big lead, it was like they just kind of put it on cruise control and they thought we don't really have to try anymore. And Lipscomb kept playing basketball and Arkansas didn't. And they were honestly lucky to get out of Simmons with a win. So I would just like to. We've seen them play with a lot of effort. Obviously, the Duke game, the Purdue exhibition, obviously it didn't count. We've seen them play hard. I just want to see them do that consistently in every game against quote unquote lesser opponents, because that's going to happen in conference play too. I mean, not everybody is Kentucky or Tennessee. They're going to have to get up for every game when it gets to conference play. It doesn't matter if you're playing a South Carolina or Vanderbilt. If they don't play with enough effort, they're going to get beat, and they're going to have. I mean, Arkansas went 8-10 in conference last year, and that team made the Sweet 16. It's like they're going to have to play with a lot more effort if they even want to go 500 in conference play.
I'm going to get a little bit specific with mine. And this number, it's a number that I think y'all might be a little bit surprised by. Trevin Brazile is averaging 6.7 field goal attempts per game. Who is the guy that is the most draftable on the team? It's TB, right? I mean, I think it's pretty clear cut. It's TB. He needs more than 6.7 shots per game, and I wish he would. I would like him to maybe weed out the hesitation to shoot the ball from three. And we saw a lot of hesitation the other night, I think, in North Little Rock and Arkansas. I don't think I'm ever going to be upset that Trevin Brazile shot the ball, and so I feel like he's got to do it more. And I think it's just kind of taking a little bit more control of the offense, because like I said, nobody in that building or Eric or anybody on that staff, probably nobody else on the floor is going to gripe about TB shooting. And I asked Eric the other night, was like, hey, a guy like TB in a game like this, what he finished with, like 6 points, 7 points the other night, regardless of what it was, he needs to assert himself a little bit more. What else do y'all have?
Yeah, I just feels like there needs to be like that guy who steps up and just kind of shows you that he can. I don't want to say take over a game, because I don't think with Eric, like you like the balance, like you don't really want just being dependent on like your Mason Jonesy, or where it's just like, all right, Mason, go get us a bucket and win the game. But like you need that guy who's going to be consistent though, like as far as like every single game what you're going to get from them. And I agree with you there. I like Trevin Brazile. He's the one that was scratching like lottery pick on a lot of drafts after the Duke game, mock drafts after the Duke game, and it's like, where is that right now? You just kind of need that guy. I think right now, you, I don't want to call it an alpha problem. You need an alpha though. It feels
Yeah.
like you need that.
I
You
agree.
need the guy. You need the guy who like the team knows without a doubt, like they're kind of the face of your team right now, and
Mhm.
it's just not really happening right now. I mean, Arkansas has Tremont Mark averaging 16.1 points per game. They've got Caleb Battle 15.1, and these are two transfers you got out. You know, your Trevin Brazil's 37th in the SEC with 9.8 points per game, and I just think he's a better player than that. And I don't want to I'm not like pointing that out, saying like, oh my goodness, like you're having a bad year with them. It's almost like just assert yourself more. It's like you see him and you're like, you're still good. Like it's not like he's just playing bad. It's just not as assertive as you'd like him to be. Maybe be a little more opportunistic of like just opportunities to go and get yourself a bucket.
Going back to TB for a second, he's taken more than 10 shots in a game twice all season. Those 2 games, they got 10-plus shots, were the 2 in the Bahamas where he combined for 15 offensive rebounds against Stanford and Memphis. And so if he's not offensive rebound, like we've got a sample size here that shows if he's not going absolutely insane on the offensive glass, then he's not going to take 10 shots. A guy like TB, man, I think he's easily, to me, the most draftable guy on the team. And I think your most draftable guys, most pro potential type guys, they've got to be, if they're not leading your team in shots, they got to be over 10, man. They got to be over 10.
This team is really good, in my opinion, whenever TB is aggressive on the offensive glass, and Chandler Lawson and him are both active it's weird because
TB on the offensive glass, Chandler Lawson blocking shots and boxing guys out and opening lanes for guards to get
it feels
in there
like
and
if you
rebound.
don't kind of like the games that you're like, oh, like the ghost games of where were they? It's as far as the team you're saying, like Lipscomb, it's like where were those guys kind of. So
Yep.
I think Blake had a thought.
Yeah, I think that I think he still might be playing timidly because obviously he tore his ACL last year in the 6th game and had to sit out the entire year. Then 2 weeks ago he sprains his ankle.
Yeah, I wonder how much that's hindering him right now.
Yeah,
He's just not saying it.
And I think that's probably causing him to play a little timidly because that gets in your head. You don't want to play super aggressively and then possibly get hurt again. But if his ankle's bothering him, he shouldn't be in the game. And what I don't like, and you see this a lot, and Musselman might not necessarily do this. Let's say he has a few bad games in a row, and then they come out and say, "Well, his ankle's been bothering him." Well, then he doesn't need to be in the game that much, and let his ankle heal and let him get back to full game speed. But I don't want to see something. I'm not necessarily saying that's going to happen, but you see that a lot. It's like why is Trevin Brazil been playing so poorly? Well, his ankle's still bothering him. Okay,
Yeah.
well then he shouldn't be out there.
Yeah, I do think that there are obviously bigger fish to fry than like down the line. You want him for, like Eric said before the season, we want him in March more than we want him in November or December. But I still think that you can take that catch and shoot right wing 3. I think that's why not? Why can't you do that? My next grievance, I think I've got 2 more. Arkansas doesn't have one defensive stopper, let alone a tandem. And I think if there's anything that has bugged me, maybe more than anything else, it's that Devo and Tremont Mark. I think there was a lot of talk in the preseason about their defensive potential as a group, but right now, like I can't pinpoint guys and say that this is Arkansas's best defensive player. Like I think Arkansas's best defensive player right now is Chandler Lawson, and then there's even times where, like Ethan mentioned, where he's kind of been non-existent. Anything else y'all have before I get to my last one?
Yeah, it still drives me insane seeing guys straight line to the drive to the rim just off of like a ball screen or something. It's like too easy. I mean, Blake talked about it earlier, like the flat-footedness and just like watch them go by. That happened a lot during the meltdown. that meltdown that happened against Lipscomb, I mean, I don't have the exact number, but it felt like Lipscomb got going because guys were just getting to the rim whenever they wanted.
You got anything, Blake? You want me to get my last one?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it also doesn't seem like this team is learning from their mistakes, and that's a perfect example of Lipscomb getting to the rim at will. Oklahoma just did that a week ago, and you'd think maybe they would work on something like that with a week to prepare, and then Lipscomb was just doing the exact same thing.
And here's what's crazy about all of it. I went back and had to look at it because their coach said it to me, and he was right. They had 4 freshmen on the court for a lot of there's 4 freshmen on that court, and Arkansas's got all these older guys, and it's like, how are these freshmen just getting to the rim, and your older guys who have been there, like, it just seems like you would maybe have a little bit more like pride about like just your defense at that point. That's why like whenever we keep on bringing up like red flags, it's just like, what's happening right now?
I feel like that Lipscomb team got almost any shot that they wanted offensively. You know what I mean? Like if you put Arkansas's defense against a motion offense that continually moves and makes Arkansas like fight over the top of ball screens and stuff. I think you can kind of get what you want offensively.
Here's the thing though, like it goes back to what Blake said too though earlier about just how they handle adversity. If they just like we have all these negative vibes around the game on Saturday. Cut the film at 9 minutes left, and you're saying they played a great finally played a good game. But that's the problem. It's like they can't put together a 40-minute game right now, and like got to step up your defense over that stretch where it all unraveled. It's just how are you gonna respond the next time that a team goes on a run or like starts to go on runs? It's just that's what kind of, if we're still airing out our grievances, like this could be a totally different vibe to this podcast today if literally they just took care of like the last 9 minutes. And we haven't even mentioned his name yet, which is kind of crazy. But Jalen Graham, I just felt like having him on the court would have helped in those last 9 minutes. I'm not going to sit here and question what Eric was doing in the game. It just felt like the guy was, I mean, if you're going through a scoring drought, Jalen Graham during that game was really doing like effective down low, getting into his spots and stuff. It just, I don't know. It felt like to me like maybe you need to insert him back in the game to help out with at least on the. I mean, if you aren't getting defensive stops, you're going to need to score. But I mean, a 17-0 run, it was like 19-2, like you said. Overall, I mean, you need some offense then.
Yeah, I think my last one, and I'm not trying to play coach here at all, and I'm kind of playing the result here too. But I didn't get starting Joseph Pinion the other day and then playing him 2 minutes. And like he checked out before the first media timeout and then didn't play again. And I wonder what that does for a guy's confidence. You know what I mean? Because he hasn't gotten, much of a shot to produce this year. I'm trying to pull up his game logs. I think he had played, he's down. Yeah, he played 2 minutes the other day. The previous game against Oklahoma, he played 5. So maybe that's why you gave him a little bit of run, because he came in and he gave pretty good effort. Did not play against Duke or Furman. And then he played 5 total minutes in the Bahamas, played 3 minutes against Greensboro, 13 against Alcorn State, 8 against Gardner-Webb. So I really wonder where his confidence is right now. And maybe we're just trying to give him a shot and be like, hey, go do what you can in these 2 minutes. But I'm not positive at this point, but I'm not sure the ball touched his hands.
It felt like, in high school, whenever you have that senior who's not very good, but you start them on senior night so they get their moment. It was like, is that all that you did? Is you just played Joe Pinion? Like, did you just start because you're in Central Arkansas so we can get a big round of applause, and then the moment that there's a chance to get him out of the game, you pull him? I just think that you got to give like a little bit more of a leash. I mean, I don't know. I didn't realize if he did something just egregiously wrong during that period. If he did, I mean, that's on me, not.
I mean, you got a $2 trillion. I mean, 2 minutes and nothing after that.
Yeah. So it just, you hate it for a guy's confidence, like what that has to do. Like you said, like, the last thing you want is your guys not being able to play freely. And I just feel like if you only play 2 minutes and you're getting, like, you get taken out for that, the next time you go in the game, maybe overthinking a little bit, but you know, Eric Musselman, he's coached a lot of teams, so
He has coached a lot of teams. You want to hand out some gifts for this team? I'd see Blake's nodding his head like he really, really wants to pass out his gifts. What you got?
My idea was to give Musselman some electrodes, like some sticky electrodes, and it would be up to Eric where he puts them on the player's body. But you give him a remote that he can have on the sideline, and if they're breaking down defensively and they're not giving that effort, you zap them, and you can also control the strength of the zap. So depending on the egregiousness of the error, a bigger zap. But it's aversion therapy, so he wouldn't have to do that for the rest of the season. If he does it for long enough, the players would learn that when they make a mistake like that, they're going to get zapped, and then they just instinctively, quit doing that to avoid the zap.
all right.
What you got, Edie?
I'm gifting this team Moses Moody. I'm gifting him Justin Smith. I'm just gifting him an old team that Merrick's had. I mean, I'm really at that point right now where I'm just like, I don't know what the fix is, man. I'm not seeing anything I've seen from the past. This is, I mean, a really depressing thing to gift him, but I'm just gifting him a totally different roster, one of his old rosters. I'm gifting that. This is a gift from me to Eric. This is me wrapping up, that 2021 or 2021 team. And
The 21-22 team.
no, the one before. I like the one before a little bit better. The one that played in the bubble.
Okay, yeah.
I really liked that team. It was
The 2021 team.
the 2021 team. Yes, I'm wrapping them up. I'm handing it to Eric and saying Merry Christmas.
That's gonna be a big box, dude. I can't imagine. Shipping is gonna be outrageous.
Yeah.
My first gift is a chemistry set. We got to figure out, like, if they even like do these things go together, and then you got to figure out what doesn't go with what, and then I figure you can probably find at least 5 elements that will go together without, boiling over. You know what I mean? My second gift, I bought a star, and I'm gifting it to them, and they can name it. I think you got to have a star on this team, man. And I think a couple of years ago when that J.D. Note, Jalen Williams led team, when it really started to find out who it was like we already knew that J.D. was kind of the lead guy, but Jalen Williams made his star turn, and I think that really kind of turned the tide for that team. And I'm going to kind of go in the same vein as you gifting him an entire roster of guys. You sending that in the shipping container or what?
I mean, we're probably gonna have to get a U-Haul and just tell them all, like, hey, pack in there. Jalen Williams is probably taking up a lot of space in there. But I just would gift him that team. We'd take it. We'd get the biggest U-Haul that we could and roll right up to Bud Walton and drop him off before conference play.
My last gift, Blake, did you have anything else that you wanted to gift them, or was it just the shot collars, basically?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could go with a collar. That might kind of get in the way during the game. I was thinking like just the electrodes that you can just kind of stick anywhere, and it would be Eric's discretion where he puts them.
Sure. I mentioned mine's kind of similar to Ethan's, but not exactly. I have a refurbished L. Ellis that I would like to give the team. He played like a minute the other day against Lipscomb, and I wrote before the season, and I think one of the big storylines before the season is like, hey, it looks like Arkansas's got his point guard with L, understanding that he comes from a less than ideal situation at Louisville. I kind of thought that might be able to coach some of the Louisville out of him. He said all preseason he was ready to run the show. I think you got to give him another shot. I mean, I think he's a vet. He's been around the game before. The Louisville teams were not bad because of L. It was like an all-encompassing lack of talent and probably leadership starting at the top. Kenny Payne's not exactly killing it at Louisville. I just think L L's ready to. I think L in the preseason was ready to run the show. I think maybe he's been in timeout lately, but I think, and I've had the thought for a while, like if Arkansas is going to be the best version of itself, I think L's got to be at least some part of that.
Mm-hmm.
How did I do? Can you rate my gifts?
I think it's a Christmas to remember.
There you go.
I think Eric will be wishing us a happy new year after.
I'm like at a 1.5 out of 10 on Blake's. I think that's dangerous.
It could be a low voltage shock. It doesn't have to, incapacitate him. It's not like a taser.
Okay.
It's just painful enough that you don't want it to happen.
Kind of like the shock collars for dogs, like the invisible fence.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. What an episode. I don't know that I expected us to be here. Didn't expect Arkansas for sure to be 7-4. Arkansas does have a game on Thursday against Abilene Christian, and then Arkansas's got 9 days between games before the new year. They play UNC Wilmington, who Blake mentioned earlier, has already beaten Kentucky. And I know that Kentucky has said that the reason that they pulled up their brand new floor was not because they lost to Wilmington, but I think that's I'm calling cap on that one. Kentucky is getting a brand new floor, and I think UNC Wilmington's had something to do with that. I mean, that's what I think the streets are saying that anyway.
Yeah, that was.
You got anything else before we get out of here? I feel like people have probably listened to this gripe for 58 minutes now. It's probably time to wrap it up.
I guess to end on a positive note.
Oh, Talia Scott's stat / fact of the week.
She's still number one in the SEC scoring. That'll keep it nice and sweet. She's still leading the league in scoring after she only scored 9 points, which, like, you have some people begging for 9 points in a game, and she was really upset at herself. She still leads the league in scoring by a lot.
Let me see where 9 points would have landed the other day. Would have been tied for fourth on Arkansas's men's team.
Yeah, she was. You expect at this point with her, you're like, oh, you kind of expect 25 to 30.
Yeah, she'll bounce back. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they play in Fort Myers or West Palm Beach. They played in Fort Myers previously. They play in a tournament in Florida the next 2 days. Play games at 10 a.m. against Illinois and UIC. So,
I mean, interesting week. Arkansas's men again on Thursday at home against Abilene Christian. We won't talk about Abilene Christian. We need to get out of here. But lots of basketball this week. Basketball around Christmas time, I think, is always a lot of fun. I mean, NFL kind of dominates this time of the year, I feel like, but basketball is getting, as they say, it's getting cold outside, but the basketball inside is really heating up.
Yeah.
That just made me want to vomit saying that.
Well, I'm excited that about 2 more times from now, recording one of these, will be ready for conference play, because conference basketball, I mean, sign me up every single.
Yeah, 2 games a week is going to do my soul pretty good instead of these stretches of 3 games in like 20 something days.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. I guess this will be the last pod before Christmas. We'll probably try to record before Arkansas plays UNC Wilmington to close out the calendar year. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting. Like, we talked to Eric on Wednesday. We've got an availability with him on Wednesday, and then Arkansas will play on Thursday. Going to be an interesting time. Like, I'm sure we'll have some stuff to talk about again next week ahead of UNC Wilmington. We'll do a little bit of a deeper dive on Arkansas's women's team and what's going on with them too next week. For Ethan Westerman and Blake Sutton, I'm Scottie Borderline. Thank you guys for listening in to the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. We'll see you again next week.